So, full honesty and transparency up front, I was sent a key and a bunch of goodies by Folklore Games, the developers of Spyro. This may or may not affect how I review the game. So in the description I've written like a sort of like ethics statement. So if you want more transparency on how I'm going to try and review like these more like sponsored games in the future, please check it out. And with that, onto the video. My family has a history of neurodegenerative disorders. Alzheimer's, dementia, ataxia, Parkinson's. My family has seen it all. Although I've been rather fortunate that I haven't really ever witnessed it in person. The closest I've gotten so far in my life was my aunt slowly dying of cancer in every organ of her body, and I don't know. I don't think she was really with it for the last 6 months of her life. So when I got a key for Spiral, a game that promises to actually humanize the person behind these horrible, horrible, horrible disorders and conditions, I had to play it. And I am really, really happy that I did. In Spiral, you play as Bernard, an elderly man who is rapidly losing touch of his memories, their contents, the order of them, the smells, touch, faces, voices, names, all of it. It's all going, and you're along for the ride as he tries to make sense of his life. And just a warning, this stuff is pretty confronting. Not necessarily in content matter or themes, but just because it's going to happen to someone you know eventually. It's not pretty watching someone lose themselves, even if it's a fictional man. So thank God that Spyro is a stunner though. Art style and direction wise, this game is wonderful. It knows how to use lighting, and especially colour. Every scene pops, and when it has to go dark and depressing, it still looks hauntingly beautiful. There's a real focus on simple but effective, environmental storytelling. It harkens back, to me at least, Alice Madness Returns, where everything had a meaning implied or otherwise. And for me to sit here and say that is testament to Folklore Games' impressive work here. As we travel through Bernard's shattered memories, we get to visit a lot of different places, from family homes, libraries, public parks, and even some more fantastical environments. And they all look, honestly, great. Sure, could lighting have been fine-tuned to better highlight certain parts of each stage? Yeah, but I could say that about Dishonored, and Dishonored is Dishonored. So yeah. But, it's not all good though. This is an indie production. It's a pretty small team. Stuff has to be prioritized, but because I'm reviewing the game, I'm gonna bring it up. So, this game looks flat, and this is really just down to Unreal Engine 4 requiring an astronomical amount of tweaking to look okay at the best of times. Plus, let's be honest, this needs some sort of atmospheric fog or just mist in the air to break up the foreground from the background. Which is odd, because the same can also be said for the audio as well. There's a lot of times where you're waiting for the characters to talk, and there's just nothing. Or you're walking, and there's not even footsteps. And I want to preface this with, look, I played a pre-release copy of the game. It's very possible that the sounds literally weren't triggering. Or, it could also just be that there was no sounds to trigger. But again, that is pretty minor. Look, the game looks pretty good, it sounds pretty good. It's just not as good as it could have been if a little bit more effort was placed. As is customary for this channel, normally I would have a section on gameplay. But, I'll be honest here, this is the most basic game I've reviewed from a gameplay point of view. It's a lot of walking, there's some minor minigames like fishing or slingshotting, and a pretty okay turn-based combat section towards the end. But that's it. So there's not really much to talk about gameplay-wise. All I really can talk about was my experience playing it and how well the game feels to play. Which, I'll be honest, it's not great. There's really not much feedback for anything you do. Walking feels like sliding, interacting with objects feels subpar as your animations struggle to keep up with what you're doing, and that's if it works at all, as the game is littered with bugs. But again, I did play a pre-release version of the game though, so it's very possible a lot of this is fixed now, but I'm lazy. It takes me a long time to actually make these videos, So I started this pretty early on, so I don't really have a chance to play the game again and go, oh, is this fixed? Is this fixed? So take me on face value, assume it's fixed, buy the game, refund it if it's not. The large majority of my issues seem to tie in with triggers not going off for certain tasks. Like needing to pick up an object to trigger an event, I would pick up the object, but then I can't progress. I'll then need to restart the game and now it would work. That's fine, stuff happens, whatever. But this was every level. I had to restart the game every level as something was breaking. I sincerely hope this has been fixed, as it was a horrible experience, and it made the game way more of a daunting experience than it should have been. Otherwise, the vast majority of the game is perfectly fine with no bugs. But enough of all this complaining. The main appeal of Spiral isn't going to be its art style or its gameplay. Sure, they add to it, but the main appeal is going to be the story, the slow unraveling of one's memories and all the juicy existential crisis that is bound to come with it. Spiral begins with a cute little animation of Bernard being told to get off a train as they have reached their last stop. Outside is the abyss, and an old friend, Alfie, Bernard's childhood dog. And yeah, we are starting the game off already in the deep end with mismatched memories. Soon we are whisked away to the spiral, which serves as our intermediary space between memories. We climb down it, enter a memory, exit, then keep climbing. The memories continue in a mostly chronological way, beginning with Bernardi's childhood home, then school, then adulthood. We see a lot of different stuff over the 4-hour runtime. We see first loves, first friends, and even the death of our mother. It's pretty heavy stuff at times. The quality of voice acting on display really means that every line has its appropriate weight assigned to it.
Where did you go, Mom? Oh, I can't find you. I need you. Where are you?
And add on the fact that Bernard's memories are always twisted in some way, this game is bound to have some sort of effect on you. But it is hard to play a game where the narrative doesn't really matter. Not because it's bad or weak, but rather because the objective narrative, the plot summary you would see on Wikipedia for example, doesn't really matter here. Now, I am going to go all pompous game journalist mode here and say that Spiral reminds me a lot of Dark Souls. And yeah, I know, Dark Souls in a video essay. How original. But hear me out. One of the most effective things that FromSoft has always done is hide the actual narrative in item descriptions and vague clues. The player is more likely to do what I like to call vibe seeking in Dark Souls. They look around and they see a world that is dying. They see these massive cities reduced to graveyards, old heroes hanging to a thread of their past honour. Dark Souls is about the end of the world. This is the most obvious in the third installment, where you quite literally fight the embodiment of the series' iconography, the bonfire. You quite literally destroy the embodiment of your past heroes. Every archetype is on display. It's an impressive fight that for some reason just really hits me in the feels, and I have never been able to put into words why. But Spiral feels a lot like that boss fight. Bernard is more or less over the course of the game fighting his own recollection of the past. He's weighing up the facts and trying to figure out who was who and what was what. He's fighting his own iconography. His memories have become graveyards of people he can't remember. And that's what I mean when I say the narrative doesn't really matter here. It's so obtuse and hard to follow by design, as we aren't ever told what is true, objectively anyway. It's all true to Bernard, I mean, he remembers it, right? Memories can't lie after all, they're facts, they make us who we are. But we all know that isn't true. Memories are the most malleable things we possess. They change on a dime to reflect bias. They change to reflect what we want them to. Bernard just doesn't have the privilege to pick. His memories are changing, they are getting foggy, they are disappearing altogether. The lines are blurring between fact and fiction. And this is reflected in every aspect of Spiral's design. The playful and colourful visuals get recontextualised when you realise this is how Bernard sees his memories. He doesn't see reality anymore, or not the objective reality anyway. He sees this idealised past because that's what gives him comfort. It gives him what he needs to continue. But to him, this is the past. The past is a subjective thing. History is written by the victor. It's written by the individual and by the collective whole. One is labelled truth, the other opinion. The main enjoyment for me, and probably for most people playing Spiral, is going to be trying to figure out what was real. And the game knows the player is doing this. It knows that you're playing the game as if it's a puzzle to be fitted together. But the game's ending says that it doesn't matter what the truth is, as long as Bernard feels okay with it. And that is ultimately what Spiral is trying to do. It's not about the illness but the person behind it, who they are, who they want it to be, the people within their lives, and the people they don't remember anymore. If I was to sit here and recite the story beats and figure out the truth for what happened to Bernard, who is who, what name belongs to which character, which timeline did his life unfold on, if I was to sit here and figure out Bernard's life, that would be letting the illness win. That would be saying that Bernard's subjective memories, what he believed happened, doesn't matter. It would be painting him as an unreliable narrator of his own life, that the effects of the illness are more important than the person. And that's kind of fucked. Sure, we never get this clear picture of Bernard's life as it's always being turned around on us. One second his sister is called Sarah, the next Sophie, but her role in his life never changes. She is always this supportive beacon who, sure, has her differences with Bernard's as siblings do. This happens with every character in the game. The names are constantly changing, the roles, however, don't. Sure, he has a brief moment where he remembers his father as his uncle, but to him, he was still a father figure. He might swap the traits of his parents around, let's just say his mum worked in the workshop or his dad made dinner. Or maybe it was the other way around, but let's be honest here. Does that really matter? If at the end of the day, the best part about having a family or just loved ones in general is the fact that you have loved ones. It's not what they do, it's the fact that you have them. The fact that in this miserable world you are not alone, that this existence is shared with others, and that you always have someone in your corner to help you. That's the best part about having people around you, the best part of memories, the best part of living. And that's what Spiral is about. It's not the illness, it's the person, it's who they are. And who are we if not the people we surround ourselves with, no matter how foggy the details get. The memories of love persist even if you can't remember who told you that it gets better, or who you shared that pizza with, or who your first love was, who you played D&D with. Whatever it is, it was love. And I think you have to choose to believe that love persists. Because you have to. One day we will be Bernard. And I don't think I can live knowing that I won't remember who I loved or who loved me. I want to know that no matter what happens to me, no matter what disease destroys my brain and rots my memories, I want to know that I was loved. I think that's okay, right? I think it has to be. Because otherwise, what will I have at the end? If not a series of disorganized memories that, I don't know, hopefully fill me with happiness. If not, it gives me something to do at least.